It's Friday, June 13th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. And we are coming to you live from the St. John's Convention Center for CPA 2025, number 86 annually, folks. There's somewhere in the range of, 1,600 scientists and practitioners of psychology here today. We've got a lot to talk to. OMG, folks, this is going to be quite the conversation. The range of this show, I promise you, if you're thinking about when he says, oh, this is going to be a big conversation, the range of topics are vast, I promise you, you have no idea. Like this is, like I surprised myself when we were lining up the show today. When our Lazarenko told me everyone who was on it, it was quite the thing. But a familiar, if you're watching on YouTube later, familiar face. If you're listening to us in your car or home, Janine Hubbard's here, Dr. Janine Hubbard, who everyone knows. How you doing?
I am having a blast.
This is like Comic-Con for you people, right? Like in terms of like I know there are people giving away capes upstairs too, so it really is on point to almost Comic-Con.
I was going to say, I have the squishy brain stress balls so far. I haven't found a cape. Thank you.
So upstairs capes.
Okay.
And yes, I've noticed the squishy brain stress balls, and I'm going to grab a couple because we could probably use them at CBC.
Good idea.
How are you?
This is amazing. This is something that we've been planning for a long time. For context, the last time CPA was here in St. John's was 2004. I had just moved to the province. We had 950 registrants. And today, we, like I say, are just shy of 1,600.
That's great.
I presented my doctoral research in a poster, which is what most students, CPA is their first place to be able to present their research and kind of have their taste of a big scientific convention. Now, I hate to say, now I'm at the stage where I'm just greeting old friends, and it's hard to walk down the halls without a whole lot of hugs and a whole lot of hellos and how you doing, and so there's lots of learning, there's fascinating research being discussed, and it's a chance to catch up as well, kind of on the research, but also on some personal connections.
So what are some of the things, you mentioned research and things being discussed, what are some of the standout things that you've been involved with that's just been kind of like, oh wow, this is neat?
Well, and he lived up to my expectations. I had been super excited because the honorary presidential address was coming from Dr. Gordon Flett, who does research on mattering. And once you start to explore that topic and look at it as it applies to seniors, as it applies to teenagers, as it applies to at-risk groups, as it applies to the workplace, it is such a pervasive and powerful area, and the research that he's been doing in terms of understanding just how essential that is as a psychological component for our well-being.
So what is mattering?
You're going to put me on the spot.
The broad strokes.
Because I was going to say, Gord has all kinds of details, but it's would people notice if I wasn't there?
Yeah,
and would
for you to matter.
But not just the absence of me, but because he also looks at anti-mattering. So some of it is, again, not just would people go, oh, where's so-and-so, but that your absence not just would be noticed, but would be missed. That people are noticing your contribution to whatever that is. And that could be family, that could be workplace, that could be school.
So go watch It's a Wonderful Life.
A little bit.
Right? Because they got rid of Jimmy Stewart's character, and he saw that, hey, he learned I do matter. It is important, right? So,
but one of the examples was just, the school principal who knows every child's name and is able to greet them and knows something about their family.
Yeah.
And so when you go to school, you are not just a nameless, face. So it's that connection.
I love that.
And the data that's coming out is just phenomenal. So that's my biggest take home so far.
Very, very neat. We have a lot of folks to talk to on this show. There's so many great voices. One of them, we're going with the folks people know so far in the beginning. One of them just got an award. So let's bring them over. Come on over.
Down.
As we wait for Gemma Hickey is here. Gemma, how are you doing?
I'm good. I am having fun. I was warned that psychologists are a lot of fun, and you know what? So far, so good.
Yeah, it really does seem like a pretty great crowd. Like everyone I've been involved in, everyone's friendly. Someone just gave me a chocolate when I was walking around taking things in. You can't go wrong. People giving strangers giving you candy. What could go wrong?
Lots of hugs. I'm trying to recruit them all now to come to Newfoundland, Labrador.
Congratulations. I'm just reading my notes here. It's the Canadian Psychological Association's prestigious humanitarian award. congrats.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Tell us about your address earlier and just the background of this.
Well, I'm just so overwhelmed with this honor because I was told that one of my Canadian heroes, Murray Sinclair, won the award, and people like have come before me, and I stand on the shoulders of giants. And today what I talked about was flipping the script.
Yeah.
Just because someone says that you have to be this way or that way doesn't mean that you have to go that way. You can be the author of your life and not just a character in someone else's story. And so my whole life has been about saying, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm going to beat those odds. I'm going to push back and be something different. And, I think that this award from Canadian psychologists sends a powerful message to young people out there right now who are really struggling, particularly in places like Alberta and so on. And so I hope that the fact that they've given me this award, it's affirming and celebratory because it's a win for not just me, but for my entire community.
Yeah, and for folks, I know your name is floated around a lot, right? Like, but if someone doesn't know who you are, I mean, you're 2S LGBTQ rights activist, author. You're the president for Ending Clergy Abuse, the Ending Clergy Abuse Board, right? Yeah. You've been in the media. You've been to Rome, recently again, multiple times, right? You've spoken out on a range of these topics. Mm-hmm. What's the road ahead? So you talked about flipping the switch, the messaging for young folks, the support needed, right, for communities. Absolutely. What's coming up with you?
Well, heading back to Geneva next week, and then Rome, and then Toronto to do a book reading about a collection that I was included in on conversion therapy and my contribution to getting that banned in the country. And that's why this award here feels like a full circle moment for me, because I did see a conversion therapist to try to change it. It almost cost me my life. And so that's why I do the work I do for young people out there. And the message really is that you can be who you are, just drown out the noise, take care of yourself. I really push self-care because, we need them as much as they need them, And so the message is you're not alone. Hang in there, because like I said, my life could have ended as a stat, and I'm here, and I've been a part of so many different changes, and it's just incredible. And I just want to send that message. I can't go back and say to little Gemma, it's going to be okay, but I can say that it's going to be okay to all those kids out there now, and so I just hope that my work and what I do resonates with them and their families, because there is a lot of hope.
To talk about hope in a time when you can juxtapose a couple of different things happening, right?
Yeah.
Like comments from south of the border, right? And also in Canada, right? We're not removed from it, but with all of that going on, you're talking hope and positivity and pushing forward. How do you keep doing that? And what's the push for you to be able to keep doing that?
I think it's part being a Newfoundland or Labradorian. I really feel that we got resilience in our genes. And, I tell those kids that resilience is just as a powerful skill as reading and writing. And on a resume, really, people don't really look at resilience, but it's made me a successful advocate. Without it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think that that's important, because, yes, of course, all these other things make a difference in our lives, but I just basically have a different perspective. I look at things in that I don't look at things negatively. I look at things as a positive. And for me, all of my losses in my life have resulted in wins, and I've been able to flip that script too. And so that's the message that I want to send, not just to kids out there, but to anyone. I mean, shame and these types of things, they keep us all closeted. We've all got closets to come out of, in a way. We all fear that people won't love us or accept us, but that's not true. And once you accept yourself, the rest is history.
Yeah, moving past and through that feeling of shame, the stigma that could be there, how it can be so freeing, I guess, as well.
It really is. It's about, liberating yourself from yourself, even.
Yeah. Totally.
So that's where I'm at, and there's no going back now.
Jim, congrats on the award.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. Nice to have you on the show.
Nice to see you again. I just want to give a shout out to my all my little buddies at the Gay Straight Alliance at St. Paul's Junior High. I just spoke to them last week, and so I can't put my wall. I can't frame their smiles and put it on my wall. But when I see that reflected, it makes me feel like I've really done something in my life. So
Well, and happy Pride Month, and
you.
we are here. We're talking celebration and activism and all of it together because that's the road and that's the
Absolutely.
push.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks so much.
See you
Cheers.
then. All right, you are listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We're live at the St. John's Convention Center. We've got a range of guests here, right? We're talking to psychologists all in town from right across the country for the national convention. And this is, I believe it's the 86th convention. So helping me line up this show, we got Eric Bowman here. How you doing?
I'm excellent, thanks.
Thank you for all the help.
Oh, you got it.
You are my hero for this because we got in touch a while ago, and we talked about doing this show here and yesterday's show too, and you helped line everyone up, and I really appreciate the assistance on it. Tell folks a bit about your role with this.
I'm the communications specialist at the CPA, and I do a lot of the internal communications, right?
Yeah.
I email our members, I do our social media, so that's the public facing. I do some writing and also our podcast, which we started a couple of years ago, and so it's a way to bring psychological knowledge, science to the public in a way that hopefully is accessible.
And we can't waste this voice of yours, like to have you not do podcasting or some kind of radio work, because you did radio before, right?
I did radio, yes.
Yeah.
About 15 years I did radio in Ottawa.
Tell us about the podcast conversations, because they are many and diverse.
They are, and it's the best part of my job. Like, I love being able to, sometimes it's, you think of a topic and you think, okay, who's the expert on that topic? And next thing you know, I have the expert in Canada on that topic on the podcast, and we get to delve deeply into it. Other times I come across some research. Winnie Shen, who just became a fellow here at the CPA yesterday, did some research on women in leadership and gender roles, and how for the longest time, there's been stereotypes about women being more emotional as leaders and therefore having some deficiencies there. And her study showed that, in fact, the opposite is true, that women, in fact, are less emotional in leadership roles. And so just things like that are fascinating that you get to delve into. And like Gemma was just talking about, certainly at this point, we know that gender affirming care is super helpful for trans and gender questioning kids. We get to talk about that a lot, and we get to bring that to the public. And for psychologists, it's not a controversial subject. It's like insulin treats diabetes. Gender affirming care, helps children who are questioning their gender. So we talk about that a heck of a lot as well.
Facts matter.
Yeah.
So sometimes people ask me this, and I'm never ever sure how to answer it. And typically I make a joke, right? Because people say to me, "You must learn a lot," and I always say, "Well, I forget a lot at this," and I'm going to say the same thing to you though. Like, for all those conversations, for your position, to be talking to these experts, that the amount you can just take in and learn and understand that just sounds so great.
Yeah, and I love that so much. I feel like I learn something all the time. I think you're about to talk to Dr. Kassan, who taught me so much about just immigrant experiences coming to Canada. She just wrote a book about child language brokering. We spoke about that, and that was a concept that I'd never heard of before.
No, you told me about it, and I didn't know about it either. I was like,
right.
I better Google this, and then I was talking to Dr. Kassan. I'm like, oh, okay, and we're going to find out about it soon.
Yeah, and I found that fascinating, and and so now I know a little bit about that, obviously not as much as the experts do, but yes, I now have a sort of generalist knowledge on so many things that I would never even have thought about looking up myself before.
Yeah. And are you enjoying I'm going to ask a few people this question. Are you enjoying your time here in St. John's?
I really am.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's been wonderful. The people have been wonderful. The weather has been really excellent.
You folks are lucking out, I tell you, because you never know with June in St. John's.
I was told to expect to be cold quite a lot of the time. I packed extra jackets and sweaters, and I haven't had to wear them once, and I'm pretty excited about that.
I was talking to someone who's taking a boat tour this afternoon. Maybe you should lend her a jacket, because this person did not bring one. So.
Oh, well, I have plenty of extras.
Eric, thank you so much, and we'll check in towards the end of the show as well.
Terrific, thanks,
Right.
Adam.
And I'm just going to look around here. Oh, there we go. There's my next guest as I spin around for the camera. As we talk through, right, guest after guest, we're going to hear some more great voices through the show. All psychologists or people in the field who are visiting have got some really interesting things to say. Dr. Anusha Kassan, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for stopping in.
Of course.
You're all I'm caffeinated. You're caffeinated. We're talking
Yes,
before the show.
very awake.
We're good to go. I was just talking to Eric. He mentioned you and your work, right? So, you're receiving an award.
Yes.
In this case, it's Social Justice Award for helping newcomers acclimate to Canada. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about this work then, for helping newcomers acclimate.
Yes, so I come from immigration, it's my lineage, and I've been doing this research 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it's really a way to honor newcomer communities, their voices, their experiences, so that we can understand what they need and drive, hopefully, policy programs based on their needs versus us experts deciding what they need.
So then, from when you started to now, how much has changed with understandings of this? And you're like, Adam, come on, I'm here for 6 minutes.
Sadly,
Yeah.
not much has changed,
Really?
not enough has changed. And what I hear from my family is that what our young newcomers are telling us today is the same thing they dealt with in the late 60s, early 70s. Discrimination, racism, not enough language supports. So while some of the things have changed, the essential structures haven't changed, and the experience remains pretty negative for a lot of people.
What does that say to you?
Oh, so sad. And, it's not a great socio-political climate right now
No.
for newcomers because the conversation about immigration is very negative. And so for me, why that's difficult is that these are the people that come to see me in my office because they're feeling anxious, they're feeling depressed. It's already hard to integrate into a new society, and now you have this rhetoric that immigrants are not wanted, they're stealing your jobs, you're going to be sent back home. So that
Blame
messes
for
you
certain
up.
the housing conversation, all this other stuff,
Yes.
universities, and some of these
Exactly.
other issues. So you're new to a country, and then you're hearing this chatter around, plus like the regular run-of-the-mill racism and everything else that's already been there,
Yes.
that people have been experiencing since the 60s, but then there's extra conversations on top of it. It must be helpful with you and your background for folks to talk to you given your life experience.
Yes, actually, most of the people who find me say, I want to work with somebody who understands the immigration experience. That's more important than understanding this trauma, this
Yeah.
conditions. So it really does help, even though there's so many different experiences, so much diversity in the newcomer community, but there is that commonality with, the immigrant identity and
Yeah.
having heard so many stories from different family members and friends that I think helps to connect with folks.
Child language brokering. Tell me about that.
So that's a phenomenon that we use to describe the process by which young folks, children, teens, young adults, interpret and translate for their parents, family members, communities. Typically, kids are learning the language at a faster rate than
Yeah.
adults in general, and so often they're called upon to support their family in that way, whether it's at a medical appointment, translating a government letter, doing some interpretation at school with their teachers.
So there's the language bit, right? So like if you're a newcomer family, or let's say you arrived to St. John's today, right? Parents learning English, second language, you're a child yourself, but you go into school, you pick up the language better, you also start to understand the culture faster,
Yes.
better. You're
Yes.
going home to folks sometimes who don't make as much progress learning the language, and also might sometimes, in certain cases, not relate as readily to the culture. But then you've got this child who is the translator or an interpreter, I guess, on a number of levels.
Translator, interpreter, cultural broker.
Yeah.
Because as you said, they're spending most of their days in school. School is a very Canadian space. It's a very colonial space. And so you're exposed to all the expectations from time, how you ask questions, how you interact socially, how you go to the library, take out a book, all of the things. So then, yes, they do have that, which they can bring home or like culture, broker for their parents. And I mean, then sometimes that leads to some intergenerational conflict as well, but that's a whole other interview.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then yes, the conversations of the folks being connected to one culture, country, the new one, the in-between space, all of that. You're right, different
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at child language brokering, I can see some people thinking maybe negatively towards it, or maybe learning positively. Can you go into this?
Well, the first reaction from most people is a negative one.
Yeah.
Like it's too much for the child. They're going to be exposed to material that, is beyond their developmental
You're
level.
at the doctor's office with mom,
Yeah.
and so folks are like, whoa, that's a lot on the child to interpret.
Absolutely. And the problem is it's a reality, and we don't have the services that we say we have, right?
Yeah.
We're here in St. John's. It's not even bilingual.
No.
And it's supposed to be
Yeah.
legally. So now we're talking about Arabic, Italian, any other language that, you can get that service on the phone at the hospital, but it'll take you an extra 12 hours. And then also, do you want to speak to a stranger about your stuff, or do you want to speak to your child who you know and you trust? So it is a necessity, but then there are also some positive influences that occur. Kids enjoy supporting their parents. It brings the family closer together. They feel some independence and some agency. And parents also adjust to not being as much the authority figure, but also learning to be collaborative and leaning on their kids. So when we support families in doing this work, we talk to them about the process, the reality, some of the benefits, so that they don't just get caught up in the difficult aspects of it, because they're gonna have to do it. That's the bottom line.
So then from all this work and studying and understanding, and from what you've found out, where does Canada or do provinces have to go to take what you're learning and to fix or make things better and to improve things?
I know. Yeah, the services have to be available. The programs have to be available. That costs money. And like I said before, we have a hard time doing it just for French and English when you're legally supposed to be able to go to court in French anywhere in Canada if that's your choice. We don't have that available for folks. So to think that we're going to have, more interpreters, more cultural brokers available, I don't know that it's possible, but you gotta fund the programs, and you gotta understand the importance of this for the integration and the health and well-being of the families that you're supposedly welcoming here.
I just find it interesting because we're in a time when the conversation is about nation building. And if we're talking about nation building, and I mean nation building projects, right? We'll talk about oil and gas off the coast here for Newfoundland. We'll talk about a hydroelectric project, pipelines, whatever else. Nation building in a way. But then when I hear nation building and everything you're saying, my head's going to you and the folks you're helping. And I think there's a big nation building conversation to be had there as well.
Absolutely. And, just working on more inclusion, addressing the negative socio-political context around the topic of immigration, and really, it's not a us versus them. If we're all supposedly a nation, we're all different, we all have diversity. We know that we're stronger by celebrating our diversity. Organizations do better, universities flourish when you bring in different perspectives. So it's actually a helpful thing to have people come in with different perspectives and help us figure out what our nation can look like in better ways when you have that diversity around the table.
I appreciate you taking time to come here for this chat.
My pleasure.
And where are you going next after this today?
Boat tour.
Eric's got a jacket for you.
I heard that. I heard he packed a jacket. I might have to borrow it.
Yeah, he's like, I brought a bunch. I'm like, I know someone who is in...
That's me.
Enjoy the boat tour. Just
Thank
bundle
you.
up, enjoy it, and
Yes.
thanks again.
Thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thanks for doing this.
Cheers. All right, folks. Dr. Anusha Kassan there. We're gonna shift the conversation as well. We keep shifting the conversations. So let's meet the next person. Dr. Sandra Byers is going to come over. Let me turn around. Hey, how you doing? I'm
great,
looking
thanks.
at the TV camera, looking back on stuff. Tell folks a bit about yourself.
I am actually recently retired. I'm a professor emerita in the Department of Psychology at the University of New Brunswick. So I retired last year after 46 years at UNB.
46 years at UNB.
Yeah, so I'm a researcher.
Yeah.
Of course, I was a teacher. I'm a clinical psychologist with a part-time private practice. So I like to do diverse things, and most of it has been focused on human sexuality. That's really my area.
And you got an award.
I did.
Congratulations.
I was absolutely honored. The Canadian Psychological Association gave me their gold medal, so gold medals for lifetime achievement. Somebody just said to me, "Oh, that means you're old." So I said, "Oh, I guess it does." But anyway, it's for lifetime achievement, so that was wonderful. It's wonderful to be recognized, but particularly to be recognized by CPA.
And by the way, you can be old without achieving stuff, right?
That-
Like
yes,
so,
I guess that's
it's
true.
the achievement. The key word is achievement here.
Yes. Thank
do me
you.
a favor, take one step forward, if
Forward.
you- a little bit towards the microphone. What was it for your research?
Yeah.
46 years ago. What was it like getting into the area of doing research on sex? At the time, like, what has evolved over the years when it comes to research on this?
Oh, it's changed a lot. So first of all, my PhD was not in human sexuality, and when I got my PhD, which is admittedly was a long time ago, really, I wanted to go into psychology, and I'm not sure really there was almost anyone doing sex research that you could do your PhD with. So I did get a few opportunities in my PhD program to do projects in the area, like not part of my degree at all. And then I got an opportunity. We do a one-year internship as clinical psychologists to get some training as a sex therapist during my internship, and all that really gelled for me, piqued my interest, and made me realize, there's so many gaps, there's so many things we don't know. It's a topic that's so important to people. People, want to feel good about themselves sexually. They want to have a wonderful, pleasurable sexual life with a partner, and so I start out someplace, and I evolved towards really focusing on human sexuality through my career.
A lot of folks are nervous to talk about sex, especially talking about sex on the radio, but I'm pushing through here. What have you kind of found over the years with people being, where they're nervous or feeling it's like taboo to talk about it, and just being able to open up to the fact of like, yes, we should enjoy it, and if you're in a relationship, there's things that you can work on, and this can be a healthy sex life is important.
Yeah, yes, and people want a healthy sex life, and it's like a miracle if you end up with somebody and you're just perfectly aligned. Like, what's the chances of that in sex or anything? So mostly in relationships, we need to figure things out, negotiate, and come up with something that works jointly. And the only way you can do that is to be able to communicate. But we've done research I've done a lot of research on sexual communication with my students and others. And we've done sexual communication between partners, between parents and children, between whether teachers feel comfortable teaching sex education in the schools, whether healthcare professionals, psychologists, midwives, physicians, nurses are comfortable talking to their clients and patients about sexuality. And here's the spoiler alert, not. So in all those contexts, we actually do. Some people are. There's some people who are doing a great job, but on average, people are not, as you said, comfortable talking about
Why are we so
sexuality.
weird about it?
Well, because of how we were raised, because our parents didn't talk about sex to us, or, we got the talk, but it wasn't something that we felt you could tell they were uncomfortable, or they didn't encourage us to ask questions. It's not that there's a lot of sexuality out there, right? There's jokes, there's a lot of sex on the media. Almost everybody watches pornography or has watched pornography, but there's also a lot of negative messages about sexuality, and a lot of it isn't talking on a personal level about what I like or what I want or how I feel.
That's really interesting. In a sea of sex content,
Yes.
we're still afraid to talk about it in a way that is helpful.
Many people, yes.
Yeah, many, not
people.
everyone.
Not everyone.
Not everyone. Some
Yeah.
people are great at it.
Yeah.
Seeing I got you here, can I get like 3 suggestions on how to enhance a relationship? Or 2 or 1 or whatever?
Well, yes. So for one thing, to enhance a relationship, so with your partner, communicating, number one. And if you're not comfortable communicating, I recommend having a pre-talk, which is not during sexual activity, but say, I think our sex life would be better if we'd be able to share things with each other, tell each other what we liked and didn't like. How do you feel about having those conversations? So get buy-in from both partners to start out with. Would be one suggestion. The other is, if you're not comfortable doing it, practice. say it in front of the mirror, say it 20 times, so that we can get more comfortable doing anything if we practice. So that would be one suggestion. Same with talking about our kids, talking to about our kids, which almost all parents think they should do it, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
So they need to read up, find out what they should say, at what ages, and how to say it, and then they need to practice so that they don't if they seem too uncomfortable, their kids are not going to get engaged, right? So practice is good. Another thing is, in terms of enhancing our sexuality, there are a lot of myths and misinformation out there.
Yeah.
So I think people can inform themselves, learn things, read things. Unfortunately, there's lots of information on the internet too, but there's the good information, and then there's a lot of information on the internet that's inaccurate or promotes stereotypes or leads to very unrealistic expectations about, sexuality, sexual performance, what good sex looks like. So the more you can myth bust and actually separate the myths from the reality, that's really good. So if you have a course, take a course, read a book, all of those things could be helpful. And can I have one more suggestion?
Oh, yes. No,
While I'm on a roll?
Don't stop. Keep going.
Okay, and the third thing is, and our research certainly has shown that people tend to have a very narrow view of what is sex. When you ask people what sex is, it tends to be very performance-oriented, or penetration, orgasm, and I call that sex, but I think people need to make love and not have sex. And making love to me is more the zen of sexuality, so the process is more important than the outcome. People need to broaden their script, and so having sex or making love can be any way you express your physical feeling, your feelings for your partner in a physical way. Doesn't have to include penetration, doesn't have to include orgasm. And the reason to broaden the script is, first of all, it's more subjectively satisfying to people. Like, people use the word satisfied as a euphemism, like, were you satisfied? That means, did you have an orgasm? That's not how I use it. I use it as that subjective feeling, man, that was great.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about the touchdown. It's the full game here,
you
right?
Got it.
Including the halftime show.
You got it. And so that's what people have to get into. And the other advantage to that is, if something happens, somebody has an illness, somebody has a disability, things change for them, then if you define sex more broadly, you're more able to adapt to whatever changes, and also if you can communicate.
Dr. Sandra Byers, I appreciate you talking about sex and everything you just said with
Yeah.
those tips here on the radio.
Right.
Congratulations, like when we talk about achievement, accomplishments, your award,
Thanks.
your career, and I really appreciate you taking time to hang out a bit on the lunch hour here.
My pleasure. Great to meet you.
And what are you doing for the rest of the day? Where are you going? Anywhere?
I actually have conference stuff to do for the rest of the day, so
you're busy.
I'll be around. I won't be on that boat tour.
You're not on the boat tour? Okay, I was just checking.
But I have been to Newfoundland a few times in the past, and
you-
when I've been here in the past, I did all the tourist stuff, so I feel like I have at least tasted Newfoundland.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, folks, I'm Adam Walsh. This is The Signal. We are live on location at the St. John's Convention Center, CPA 2025, 86th Annual National Convention. There's almost 1,600 folks here, everyone scientists and practitioners of psychology. I'm going to go over to our next guest. We're cycling through here through the hour. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, Adam. I'm good, and how are you?
Good to see you. Zoraida Dada is here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I am formerly from South Africa, and I came to Canada in 2006. I'm a licensed psychologist in Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba. I'm also on the courtesy register for Nova Scotia, and I provide services to clients in Quebec as well as in New Brunswick.
I want to ask you about, this is the work you do,
Yes.
lessons from Nelson Mandela, and from apartheid South Africa to post-apartheid South Africa. And I'll leave you to fill in some of the gaps, or to take the baton on the explanation of what folks should think about with this. Yeah.
moving to post, and I'd like to actually speak about that in terms of identity reclamation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, you know, when we grew up under apartheid, we were never told, we didn't have an identity of our own. It was always decided for us by people, by Caucasian people. So we didn't really have an identity. And the struggle, you know, against apartheid was really a struggle of identity reclamation. We had to create our own identity and we had to define ourselves. So post-apartheid, the new country, post-apartheid that was born, was actually a redefinition of what it meant to be South African, you know, in the truest form of the word. Because under apartheid, we didn't have the ability to be able to vote. You know, we were marginalized in South Africa, so yeah.
I can't even imagine that process and how to start that work and how to build on that work. Like what was needed for that?
So you mean a post-apartheid?
Yeah, to build, for the reclamation and to figure out who, like the figuring out of who folks are after something like that.
That's right. So part of it was we used a trauma-informed approach in South Africa because we used the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was, what was really interesting about that was that there was amnesty granted to anybody who came to the commission. So there was nobody was going to be charged with any crimes or anything like that. And the reason for that was that Mandela, or Madiba, was all about reconciliation and having a rainbow nation, because he believed in Ubuntu, which really means that I am because you are, and so so that's what brought us to that particular point, and we needed that as a way of forgiveness and healing. You know, because there were a number of different atrocities that were, you know, under apartheid. Of course. You know, like terrible atrocities. And so it was about lifting people up, about recognizing, you know, that we are all human. In fact, Mandela said that, you know, they asked him, you know, how do you still manage to have so much of empathy for your jailers? Like, he invited them to come to his inauguration. And he said the reason why is because I believe when I see people, I meet them as human beings first.
Wow.
So it was bringing us back and grounding us in the identity of our own humanity.
How important is that message now?
It's incredibly important, right? Like, I mean, especially with what's going on in the world right now. And, you know, really understanding that we are all human beings I believe that we are human beings we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, and that's what creates equality. That's what creates compassion, you know, and humanity comes from compassion, you know.
Tell us your research.
Yes.
You're also tell me how you're also personally involved in your research and why that is so unique.
Okay, so with my research, my objective of my research was to create a model for understanding, a psychological framework for understanding the journey from domestic violence victim to corporate thriver. And I used an approach called constructivist grounded theory, which it allows you to create a theory from your data set. And I'm supplementing that with another approach called autoethnography, which uses your own personal story. So I'm creating vignettes, narratives, dialogues about my own experience and looking at how I actually got to the point of being a domestic violence thriver, because I was a victim of domestic violence myself.
What's the length of process for this type of work? How long will it take?
You mean the process of becoming a thriver?
Well, or just even the work you're doing now, like what's the length of time do you think, like how long does it take to compile all of this, put it together and take learnings from it for the future?
Oh wow.
And you may not know that.
I was just going to say I'll give you an answer in the typical psychologist answer, which is it depends.
Yeah.
But it really does depend on your experience. But with my research, it took me. I've been doing my PhD for quite a while now, because you have to really immerse yourself in the data, because it's the data that gives you the theory, and you really have to get to know your participants and the information that they've shared with you really intimately. So I would say, in terms of doing this research, I mean, it took me a long time. I don't know how long it will take somebody else if they were to do a similar study, but I would say anything between maybe 5 and 7 years to complete the study. But in terms of a person, a victim of domestic violence, to move to the thriving stage, it's hard to say because it depends on so many factors, like their own ability to, to reflect and to grow, because it does require identity reclamation. Yes. So everybody's different, right? And so you have to be ready for that particular experience. So it is, because it's about identity reclamation, it takes a while to be able to do that. Because when we are in a domestic violence relationship, our identity is tied in with the perpetrator. And I use the analogy of conjoined twins, right? So the first part is when you're in the relationship, your identity is so tied in with that of the perpetrator that you don't even know who you are really, and so you follow their lead most of the time, and it's a very codependent relationship, which means that I make you responsible for my thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So I'm always in fear, right, as I go through that. So that's the first stage of healing. The second stage is when the operation happens and the separation happens between the conjoined twins, and it's the same for a domestic violence situation where you actually leave your relationship, physically leave it, and that's the healing and recovery piece. And then the last piece is thriving, which is where you can make meaning out of your situation and where you start looking back at what happened to you as something that happened to you, but it doesn't define who you are. So it's reclaiming yourself.
If this is too personal, you do not have to answer it, but how long ago was that for you? It was, what are we looking at, 2009. My math is bad, 16 years. However long ago that was, 2009.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right, 2009, yes.
I appreciate you sharing this.
You're welcome.
And the chat. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
No, you're welcome, anytime.
And what are you doing? Like, do you have other things to do now? Or are you in conferences all day, or are you going somewhere else for sightseeing or anything?
Actually, I'm going to be staying beyond the conference because I would like to see, it's my first time in Newfoundland, and so I'd like to go around and see what's happening in the environment and nature. I enjoy hiking and stuff, but today, tomorrow I'll be speaking. I had some presentations that I did today as well and yesterday as well.
Enjoy your time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure meeting you.
It's
Thank you
been
for
a
the
pleasure
opportunity to speak.
I'll see you now. Zoraida Dada there. This is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We're live from the St. John's Convention Center. Speaking of folks in psychology, right? Like so many different topics through this show. There's a lot to talk about. I'm looking at Lazarenko, who's giving me eyes of wanting to communicate something. How are we doing?
Oh, we're doing great. I love this topic. It's awesome. So
I guess we're going to bring someone else in. All right, so here we go. Live radio, you cycle through folks, so I'm going to move back around. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I am doing great.
Excellent. I think you look familiar to me. Introduce yourself for a second, if you could.
So, my name is Anita Gupta, and I have been the president of CPA for the last year. And how it works at CPA is that the convention is this amazing time when we all come together, and it's also the time when the presidential officers change over. So, starting tomorrow, we have a wonderful president named Steve Smith, and so that's who I am.
So then you would have done the message for this thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I recognize you. I was looking through like the stuff in the lead up to the convention.
Yeah, that's my big face of the president in that book, and I mentioned I would love it if people came and introduced themselves to me, and I've been so fortunate that our members have done that. I've had so many students come up and introduce themselves to me, and it's a really exciting time.
We're getting a taste of like the vast range of what's going on in the psychology world. It is impressive. It is like I feel I could talk to so many people here from so many different things and just be like the amount of learning that is possible in this place is staggering. help me continue to enhance the picture here of like what are some things that have really kind of
Sure.
struck you for here
Yeah.
with this latest conference?
Yeah, no, it makes sense what you're saying. I mean, Canadian psychology has such breadth and depth.
Yeah.
So we tend to kind of think of it in three large categories. One being science, one being the practice, right? That's, clinical and applied work, and then one being education. But then within that, there's so many things that are happening. And so I think one of the things that really stood out to me this year, almost like a call to action, was the speech from our honorary president, Dr. Gord Flett.
Yeah.
And he spoke about the importance of mattering.
Janine, Dr. Hubbard was mentioning that too, and I asked her, we talked about it, and it's, and I know my colleague Martin Jones, who I'm actually looking at across the way here, who's doing interviews, my CBC colleague,
Yeah.
he did an interview on this for Newfoundland Morning as well.
Oh, wonderful.
And
So
Martin,
glad.
it was one of those ones where Martin's like, I could have talked to him for hours,
Yes.
and sometimes in our business,
And Dr.
you have
Flett can
6
speak for
minutes.
hours.
So
So
that's the rumor. So when you were like, what was your takeaway then for you? Like when you're listening to him talk.
So
what was
I
it?
really think, this is when psychology is at its best,
Yeah.
right? When we have the research and we're considering it from a population health perspective. So we're thinking about everyone. And we're thinking about how can we do this in multiple ways, right? In education, in science, and just in practical ways. And one of the things that Dr. Flett is so great about is identifying, making it really practical. And so, if I've seen someone after a long time, me telling them I've missed you, that shows that
Yeah.
they matter. Really getting to know someone and wanting to know their name, and that shows that we matter. And so there's ways that psychology can be used in everyday life, and
And-
that's what I get really excited about.
Paying attention, listening, engaging with people, eye contact, showing that they matter, and then figuring out like, wow, that actually is important, because it in a way it seems simple, but it's things that get missed so often.
Well, I think sometimes if you can find the simplicity in the complex concepts, that's when you really have it. And so, part of my desire for our focus as CBA over the last year was to have true engagement, true dialogue, even when it's difficult, true connection. And, psychologists are pretty good at doing that. So it's wonderful when you get people from across the whole country together to really think and engage and challenge each other and have lots of fun in St. John's, Newfoundland.
And what have you been up to, like when you're not talking to folks here? Have you done anything locally yet? Have you been out, looked around at all?
Well, I knew that I would be extremely busy, so I came down about 3 days earlier.
Oh, go away.
Because you can't miss out on seeing St. John's.
There you
It's
go.
beautiful. And, Signal Hill is one of my favorite places. I've been here about 3 times, so
Cool.
I definitely fit some stuff in.
Anita Gupta, thank you very much for this, and enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks for the chat.
Thanks so much.
All right, Anita Gupta there, the president of the association. We're going to bring someone else in here now. Sir, are you Dr. Nick Carlton?
I am.
Good, because that's the name I had in front of me, and
Fabulous.
I was like, you're right on time.
I can try and fake that guy better than other guys, I promise you. So,
How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. So you were at, you're a busy person.
I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not busy, then I might get bored, and I'm not sure what that would look like, so.
Everyone, most of the people on the show today are award winners. You got one too. Tell us about it.
I did. I was given, and now are you clipping?
No, we're live. This is live radio, my friend, so keep talking.
All right, fair enough. I was given the award for the advancement of psychology as a profession.
Yeah.
And it's primarily because I think of the work that I've been able to do with our First Nations and not our First Nations, our first responders and our other public safety personnel across the country as we've tried to support their mental health going forward. And that's been a real privilege for me to be able to work with all of them.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
When we think about first responders, when we think about RCMP, folks you don't work with, first responders coming out during and coming out of COVID during the thick of things, what progress has been made for the understanding of PTSD and trying to help folks when it comes to first responders?
So in many ways, I think we've made tremendous progress over the last decade. There's been a huge set of dedicated resources and dedicated activities to try and reduce stigma, to increase communication, to spread knowledge about mental health challenges that are facing first responders. There have been tremendous investments to try and really reshape the culture that they're all engaging with. And I think we've made some really good progress particularly relative to the distant history that we've had over the last 150 years with uniformed personnel and their mental health. I think we have a long way to go yet, but I'm very excited about a lot of the opportunities that we've had and the advancements that we've already made.
So why this for you?
There's a lot of different reasons, I guess, but probably the shortest answer is all of these are people who choose to put themselves in harm's way regularly for all of the rest of us. They are deployed to what for them are unsafe zones for years and years on end. They're deployed there with their friends and their families, and they choose to serve and protect all of the rest of us. And as a function of their experiences and the challenges that they face, they're at a higher risk for a variety of mental health challenges. And I think we owe it to them, if they're willing to put those uniforms on and serve all of the rest of us, we owe it to them to make sure that we're protecting their mental health to the best of our abilities.
And this always goes back to like First World War, the shell shock thing, right? You know, you hear about that. And then it's when we were in Afghanistan, it's like, decompression, stay in Cyprus and, blow off some steam. None of that healthy for the most part. And here we are in 2025. The organizations, whether it's the military, the RCMP,
our paramedics, correctional workers,
right?
border services.
But, so the organizations now have a different understanding about it too, right?
They do. The organizations are much more informed than they probably were, certainly than they were 100 years ago, because we're all more informed than we were 100 years ago.
But even 20 years ago and 15 years ago.
Even 15 or 20 years ago, absolutely. So recent research that various team members led over the last decade, we were able to identify that nearly 1 in 2 of our public safety personnel were screening positive for one or more mental health disorders, which is orders of magnitude larger than we see for the general population. And at that point in time, it started to shift the conversation, even within the organizations, to go, these are not isolated challenges, these are systemic challenges we're facing. And that makes for a really important change in their perspectives. And we're watching that change with the leaders who are investing and now trying to grapple with our innovations and our challenges at the same time to deploy solutions for everybody who's serving. So we're really seeing a big culture shift for a lot of the leadership, a lot of the organizations. It will still take a tremendous amount of time, but we're making progress.
So culture shift's happening. The work you're doing is helping folks. There's more understanding. In like under a minute, I'm just thinking, what's the road ahead for what else has to change to continue helping people to keep making progress in helping frontline workers, military, RCMP, you name it?
I think we need to make sure that we've resourced them appropriately with the tools and the training and the monitoring systems that we know are evidence-based. I also think we need to pay attention to the fact that they are reporting dramatic levels of understaffing across all of our public safety sectors, and we're going to need to increase that staff if we want to make sure that we can maintain the services they're providing. I think with those two things, those will be big steps forward, but going forward collectively, we need to continue to reduce mental health stigma as a population ourselves. That will also help.
Yeah. Have the supports, staff up, continue wraparound supports, and care afterwards, and bust the stigma.
Absolutely. That'll help.
Dr. Nick Carlton, thanks for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
See you now. Dr. Nick Carlton. All right, folks, we're running out of time here. I'm just looking over. Eric, come on back over here for a second now. And for Andy, who's in the studio, we are going to go to the theme instead of the song that was planned. Help me wrap this up.
Sure.
Again, that was such a great conversation with all the conversations we just had here on the show.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
They're all terrific, eh?
Yeah, and just like I made this promise at the beginning of the show about range, and I said you're going to be surprised. At least I thought folks would be surprised for all the different areas under psychology.
Yeah.
And this is the tip of the iceberg, right?
Right.
All the other folks here.
There are 1,200 presentations happening here at the convention center just in these 3 days.
1,200 presentations.
1,200
This is why
people
everyone's
are
running.
yes.
I mean, this is an active place through the show.
It is.
What else is you like for the rest of your day in this conference? What else are you going to be doing? What else are you looking at for like things that are kind of like, okay, this is neat or this is important or whatever else?
Quite a lot of talks about adult ADHD,
right?
And some new developments in diagnosis and treatment, which are pretty fascinating. And I haven't, I've got to go see the talk to know what they're going to be talking about, of course, right?
TBD for what I'll learn.
That's
of course,
right. I will learn something, absolutely. There's a talk about the satanic panic back in the 80s, back in the late 80s, early 90s that I find just a fascinating topic.
I was a kid for that. I remember, it was like I was growing up and I would hear about it, and then it just went away.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just went away, except for some people, it actually didn't. And apparently, we're going to find out about that.
What time is that? It's tough to do.
Tomorrow,
I
I
can't go
don't remember. Yeah, if I had my schedule in front of me, I did. But yeah, there's so many things that I just want to, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to get to them all, but there's a ton that's still happening in the rest of the day and then tomorrow, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and doing this.
All right, folks, that is it for the show today. We're done. I'm out of here for a week. Jamie Fitzpatrick is in for me next week. On Monday, the discussion will focus on shelter supports for women in this province, why they're needed and what more is needed. Thoughts on the show, The Signal at cbc.ca. Thank you very much. We're just waiting to hear some theme there.